Alex, Kevin, what's going on, guys? I hope you both had a wonderful weekend. I'm really excited today because finally, after months and months of building and burning the midnight oil, as they say, Alaska is finally live. So when we started building Alaska, there were about 400 placeholder records. There was a bunch of static points, and they really didn't have much context. But now where we're at is we have more than 9,000 verified geospatially accurate fishing locations. Each one is real and 100% validated. But here's the cool part. The system actually knows which waters you can drive to and which ones actually require a float plane or a helicopter. So it doesn't fill the gaps. It actually tells the truth about Alaska's wilderness, which is really, really exciting. But how does the geospatial intelligence and engineering actually work? Let me actually dive into some of these locations so I can actually show you what the payload is returning. So if I go into, maybe we'll look at Anchorage or something like this, or we can poke around at some different locations around there. But we can actually see, I'll kind of go top to bottom here and what we actually see and what the payload returns. But we can see the GPS coordinates. We can actually see the species of that body of water. And if you guys know, you're anglers yourselves, if fishing in Alaska, there's tons of different species, but this actually pinpoints it down to the type of species in a very specific body of water. We can actually see the Chinook salmon here. We can see local intel, so we can see the region. We can see the fishing details down below. We can see fishing pressure. We can see where those opportunities lie. We can also see resources. I think the resource is a huge one. We can actually see AWC catalog. And if I actually click into these, like fish stocking, for example, I can see when the last time this actual body of water was stocked with fish. So I can actually see water access information too, if that's not provided. But all of that's linking back to the state. And as you know, Alaska is actually broken down into regions. So the regions within Alaska are all pertaining to the resources that are available as well. So we had to query our endpoint quite a bit to make sure that the resourcing was accurate per location. But let's jump back into a little bit about the spatial intelligence and the engineering that went into that. But so under the hood, essentially, it's doing something that's really powerful. So it's doing real-time spatial geometry. But before I even talk about that, I think it's important to mention what it actually is, right? So, for example, and there's a ton of plots here, and I'm not quite sure which one it might be on, but that's okay. So essentially, let's say there's a plot out in the middle of nowhere, because there's often that case in Alaska that, if people want to get to it, they can't get to it by car. They can only maybe get to it by float plane or even a helicopter. So essentially what we've done is we've created spatial intelligence mapping. Okay, so basically what that is, for every fishing location that is outside of an identified body of water, the pipeline calculates great circle distances to all the official AD-F&G access points to identify the nearest launch or harbor within 25 miles. So it's not simple filtering, it's true geographic computation that turns raw coordinates into practical intelligence, automatically distinguishing accessible day trips from, like I mentioned, fly-in wilderness destinations. So the pipeline runs distributed and adaptive, cross-checking data, caching in real time, and parsing amenities like docks, restrooms, ramps, and structured searchable features. Now, what I do want to talk about briefly, or actually rather show you, is what the payload actually looks like. So let me find, because clicking through each one of those on a map is going to take a while, but look how you can actually see how long or how many records are actually being returned. Like I mentioned, it's a ton. So we can actually see for this individual location, it's an unnamed stream, right? Because there's really no identifier associated with that unnamed stream. But we've been able to access that from the Alaska Game and Fish website and the DNR website. So we can actually call out the lat longs here. Now, the really cool part is down below where we can actually see the nearest access point. So we can tell users, hey, if you wanted to go to this body of water, or you found this body of water, where is an actual closest or nearest access point? We actually give lat long coordinates for that access point, all completely verified. But the type as well, we can see that it's a boat launch, and we can actually see how far that this access point is away from that unnamed stream. Guys, I'm really pumped about this. This was a ton of work that went into this. I'm really excited for you guys to test it out. If you want to test it, use the same base URL you already have. Drop in Alaska as the state. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I'm excited to hear how testing's going. I have a ton of updates coming up here this week and next week for other states that we're getting online, and some updates to some of the existing ones. Pennsylvania made a second version of that. Kevin, I didn't want to deploy updates to V1, which is the endpoint that you're using. So I actually deployed another endpoint, V2. Really excited to share the updates about those. If you guys have any questions, definitely hit me up. And yeah, like I said, hope you guys have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya.